The bowl shattered against my temple before I even saw my mother raise her hand. Hot soup splashed across my neck. Blood slid past my eyebrow as the ceramic pieces hit the hospital floor beside Megan's bed. Mom shoved the papers against my chest. "Sign them. If you don't wake up tomorrow, your sister deserves the chance to see." I was scheduled for brain surgery the next morning. Megan needed a corneal transplant, and apparently, my family had decided that made my body theirs to divide. I looked down at the page Mom had marked. It wasn't just an organ donation form. It named her as my medical decision-maker. Another paragraph instructed the hospital to stop life support if I showed no meaningful neurological response after 24 hours. "I'm already a registered donor," I said. "But I'm not giving you the power to decide when I'm finished living." Mom's face twisted. "You've always had everything Megan needed." "I'm your daughter," I said. "Not her spare parts." That was when she threw the bowl. I moved toward the door, but Dad stepped in front of it. "Don't ruin this family the night before your surgery." Behind him, Megan didn't call a nurse. She only smiled faintly from her bed. "You made your choice, Claire." I pulled the emergency cord and said loudly, "My mother assaulted me. Call security." 20 minutes later, Dr. Park took me into a private consultation room, locked my family outside, and opened my medical chart. Her expression changed. "Claire," she said, turning the screen toward me, "why did you submit 2 contradictory advance directives?" She opened the second file. It had been uploaded that morning. It gave Mom control over my treatment, requested my corneas for Megan, and carried my signature. I stared at it through the blood running into my eye. I never signed that. Dr. Park did not tell me to calm down. She did not offer me a gentle explanation about frightened families making mistakes. She pulled the monitor closer, enlarged the signature, and asked me to look carefully. "Could you have signed this electronically and forgotten?" "No." My voice came out too quickly, but my answer was certain. For 11 years, I had worked in medical insurance investigations. I reviewed altered invoices, cloned signatures, backdated authorizations, and forms assembled from pieces of legitimate records. I had learned not to trust certainty by itself. Certainty was a feeling. Evidence was something another person could test. So I forced myself to breathe through the pounding in my skull and looked again. The signature slanted upward after the C. The final T in Bennett ended with a tiny hooked line, followed by a dot that did not belong there. I knew that dot. 4 years earlier, the pen I used to sign my mortgage had leaked as I lifted it from the page. I had never made that exact mark again. "That signature came from another document," I said. "I think it was copied from my mortgage." Dr. Park's eyes moved from the screen to my face. "Think or no?" "Think. I can verify it when I get home." It was the sort of distinction I made every day at work. That night it felt like the only solid piece of ground left beneath me. There was a knock. A woman in a navy blazer stepped inside and introduced herself as Dana Wallace from Patient Safety. She closed the door behind her. "Your family has been asked to remain in the waiting area," she said. "Security is with them." The pressure behind my left eye sharpened. "My surgery is at 7 tomorrow morning." Dr. Park shook her head. "Not anymore. You have a scalp laceration, and I want a CT before we make any decision. Even if the scan is clear, I'm not operating until I'm satisfied this injury hasn't created an additional risk." For one ugly second, I wanted to cry about the schedule. I had spent 6 weeks preparing for that surgery. I had labeled meals in my freezer, trained a coworker to cover my cases, moved my bills to automatic payment, and recorded the instructions. Dr. Park had given me until I could repeat them without looking. The aneurysm had been discovered by accident after a migraine. It had not ruptured, but its shape and location made waiting indefinitely a risk I had decided not to take. Mom knew all of that. She had chosen the last evening before my operation because she thought fear would make me obedient. "Do the scan," I said. "But first, I want that second directive frozen exactly as it is." Dana nodded once. "We can place an administrative hold on it while its authenticity is reviewed. Not just the visible PDF. Preserve the upload record, deletion history, account activity, and every version the system retained. She watched me for a moment, perhaps reassessing the bleeding woman in the hospital gown. I'll submit the preservation request now. Dr. Park opened my original directive. I had completed it 8 months earlier, after she first explained the possible outcomes of surgery. It named my best friend, Harper Cole, as my healthcare representative. It required 2 physicians to agree that my condition was irreversible before life-prolonging treatment could be withdrawn. The new document replaced Harper with Mom and changed that safeguard to 24 hours without a meaningful neurological response. Meaningful according to whom? The woman who had just split my skin open because I would not sign away my body? I want Linda Bennett removed from every access list, I said. Robert and Megan too. No medical updates, no room number, nothing without my direct permission. Dana asked, "Has your mother ever had authorized access to your account?" I almost said no. Then I remembered my emergency appendectomy 4 years earlier, the same year I bought my house. I had granted Mom temporary portal access because I had been alone, feverish, and too sick to answer insurance questions. Temporary, I had assumed. I had never checked whether the hospital system had actually removed her. She was my representative during a previous hospitalization, I said. She should not have current authority. Authority to make decisions and portal access are not always the same setting, Dana said. An old representative account may still be able to send messages or upload documents even when the patient is competent. That does not make the document valid, but it may explain how it entered your chart. It explained access. It did not explain the forged signature. Nor did it explain why Mom had brought an unsigned paper copy to Megan's room after a signed copy was already sitting in my chart. The thought chilled me more than the wet soup cooling against my collar. They had not needed my signature anymore. They had needed a scene in which I appeared to confirm it. A nurse cleaned the cut while Dana worked at a second computer. It took 5 stitches. The CT showed no bleeding inside my skull, but Dr. Park postponed the surgery for at least 10 days and scheduled another neurological examination before choosing a new date. When the nurse asked how the injury happened, I said, "My mother threw a ceramic bowl at me after I refused to sign a medical directive." I watched her type the sentence. "Please include that my father blocked the door when I tried to leave." "I will, and that my sister did not call for help." The nurse paused. "Did your sister physically prevent you from leaving?" "No." It hurt to say it. Accuracy did not care what made a better accusation. Megan had watched. Dad had blocked me. Mom had thrown the bowl. I would not blur their choices into one dramatic sentence, because each of them had made a different decision. That was how I planned to hold them responsible. Security asked if I wanted police contacted. My first instinct was the one my family had trained into me. Not tonight, not before surgery, not while Megan was sick, not when Mom was upset. There had always been a reason to wait. When Megan was 16 and drove Mom's car into a mailbox, I was told not to mention that she had taken it without permission because she was already frightened. When she dropped out of college, I spent 6 months proofreading job applications while Mom reminded me not to discuss my promotion because Megan was feeling left behind. After the chemical accident damaged her corneas, I used nearly 3 weeks of paid leave driving her to specialists. Every favor had been presented as temporary. Every silence had become permanent. I looked at the blood-speckled sleeve of my blouse. "Yes," I said. "Contact them." Mom's voice rose in the hallway as soon as the security officer told her. "She's having brain surgery. She doesn't know what she's saying." Dad answered more quietly, but I heard him through the door. Claire lunged for the papers. The bowl slipped. The 2 statements did not match, yet they were already trying to make them serve the same story. I asked that they be interviewed separately. Megan claimed she had not seen exactly what happened because of her vision. That might have been physically true. It did not explain why she had said, "You made your choice," before anyone entered the room. I gave my account without adding that I believed they wanted me dead. I did not know that. What I knew was frightening enough. They had created a document that could give Mom influence over my treatment while I was unconscious, and she had assaulted me when I questioned it. The officer wrote everything down and gave me a report number. When I stepped into the hall, Mom was seated beneath a television playing a muted cooking show. Dad stood beside her with his arms folded. Megan had been moved to another room. Mom looked at the stitches near my hairline, and for 1 second I waited for her face to change. I waited for horror, remorse, some instinct older than favoritism. What I saw was anger. "Look what you've done," she said. Dad moved between us again, though this time a security officer stood close enough to stop him. "Your mother is terrified for both her daughters," he said. "You can still tell them this was a misunderstanding." "Did you read the papers?" I asked. His gaze dropped for half a second. "That isn't the point." It was the first answer he gave me that night that I believed. The point had never been what the papers said. The point was that Mom wanted something, Megan benefited, and I was expected to make the cost disappear. "Do not come to my house," I said. "Do not call the hospital for information. If you need to contact me, put it in writing." Mom stood so fast the security officer shifted toward her. "You would shut us out before brain surgery." I touched the bandage at my temple. "You shut me in a room after throwing a bowl at my head." For once, Dad had no softer version ready. I called Harper from the discharge area. She arrived in 23 minutes, wearing gray sweatpants, a raincoat over her pajamas, and the expression of someone who had already decided not to ask whether I was overreacting. She stopped when she saw the bandage. "Who did that?" "My mother." Harper sat beside me. "What do you need?" Not what happened to make her do it. Not, "Are you sure?" Just what did I need? "I need you to confirm you're still willing to be my medical representative." "Yes." "You should hear the rest first." I told her about the second directive, the forged signature, and the 24-hour clause. Her face went pale, but she did not interrupt. "Now that you know," I said, "are you still willing?" "Yes. But Claire, this isn't a favor anymore. We need copies, passwords, and instructions. I can follow if someone challenges me." Relief hit me so hard it felt like another injury. Dana brought us the revocation forms. I signed away every authorization connected to Mom's old representative account, added a verbal password, and instructed the hospital to contact Harper first. Dana witnessed the changes, then gave both of us printed copies. She never promised the forms would solve everything. She only told me what they could do and what they could not. That honesty felt safer than every promise my family had made me. Harper drove me home. During the ride, Mom called 6 times. Dad called twice. On the 7th call from Mom, Harper glanced toward me but did not reach for my phone. The choice remained mine. I silenced it. At home, Harper photographed the bandage and the bruising beginning beneath it. I downloaded the medical notes, the original directive, and the second file into a folder on my laptop. Then I copied the folder to an encrypted drive and sent a second copy to Harper. "You just had 5 stitches," she said. "You can stop for tonight." "I will, when I know it can't disappear." The forged signature filled my screen. Even through the medication haze, the match to my mortgage signature looked unmistakable. But I did not mark it proven. I labeled it source suspected comparison required. Harper placed a glass of water beside me. "You're building a case against your own family." "No," I said. "I'm building a record of what they did. What happens to them depends on what the record proves." My phone lit with a voicemail notification. Mom's voice was controlled now. "Claire, you are confused and frightened. Megan may never forgive you for tonight, and neither will we. Call your father before you turn a family mistake into something permanent." There was no apology for the bowl. No question about my scan. Not one word about the surgery she had just delayed. Harper heard the message from across the table. "Save it," she said. I did. Then an alert appeared from the patient portal. "A document uploaded by your authorized representative has been removed." For a moment, neither of us spoke. I refreshed the chart. The second directive was gone. My chest tightened, but before panic could take hold, another message arrived. It was from Dana. The document and associated audit history were preserved before removal. "Do not respond through the portal tonight. Rest." Mom had tried to erase the file less than 2 hours after telling police it was only an innocent form I had misunderstood. I opened the copy already stored on my computer and selected the document properties. The creation time was 6:42 that morning. The final modification had been made at 8:17. Below that was a field I had not noticed in the hospital. Author: Megan Bennett. My sister had told security she could barely see what happened in that room. But 12 hours before Mom threw the bowl, Megan had been the one who created the file. Megan's name sat at the bottom of the screen as if it belonged there. Harper leaned over my shoulder without touching the keyboard. Don't call her. The urge had already reached my hand. One tap would have put Megan on speaker. Another would have called Mom. Anger wanted a voice, preferably theirs, caught off guard and forced to explain. But a person who had spent the morning creating a false medical directive had also spent the evening denying she knew anything about it. Surprise had not made her honest in the hospital. It would not make her honest now. I closed the document properties and wrote the time on a legal pad. Author fields can be changed, I said. This points to her. It doesn't prove she made it. Harper looked at the blood-stained blouse draped over the back of a kitchen chair. You're allowed to be angry before you turn everything into evidence. If I start with anger, they'll use it as evidence against me. The words sounded practiced because they were. Mom had been calling me dramatic since childhood, usually after doing something that required me to react quietly for her comfort. Harper made me take the pain medication Dr. Park had approved. She stayed in the guest room while I slept in 40-minute stretches, waking each time the stitches pulled against the pillow. By 7 the next morning, 17 messages were waiting on my phone. 4 came from Mom. 3 came from Dad. The others were from relatives who had not called once after learning about my aneurysm. My Aunt Carol wrote, "Your mother says the aneurysm may be causing emotional instability. Please don't punish Megan because you're frightened." An older cousin used the exact phrase, aneurysm-related instability. So did Dad, in a message sent 11 minutes later. Different people did not independently choose the same clinical-sounding words before breakfast. Someone had supplied them. Harper came into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her face. Block them. Not yet. Each message was exported, with its time and sender intact. The voicemails went into the same folder as the hospital records. Only after the copies existed did I mute the entire thread. Dad's last message stopped me. I only witnessed what your mother put in front of me. Don't make that into something it wasn't. Nothing I had said at the hospital mentioned a witness section. That detail existed only in the false directive. He signed it, I said. Harper read the message twice. He says he witnessed something. He doesn't say what. Exactly. The distinction hurt, but it mattered. Dad had revealed knowledge, not yet the full action. I saved the message under his name and added a question to my notes. What did Robert witness, and when? Mom still had a key to my house from the appendectomy 4 years earlier. Before opening another file, I called a locksmith and took the first appointment available. Changing the lock felt excessive until I pictured Dad blocking the hospital door, while Mom rewrote the bowl in her head as an accident. By noon, the old key no longer worked. The new one went to Harper, not because she asked for it, but because I chose her. Once the locksmith left, I opened the fireproof box in my bedroom closet and removed the mortgage packet. The original signature was on page 31. Placed beside the signature from the directive, the match was almost obscene. The upward slant after the C was identical. The hooked final letter stopped at the same angle. Even the tiny dot from the leaking pen sat the same distance from my name. Real signatures varied. These did not. Using tracing paper from my desk, I aligned one over the other. Every significant stroke met its twin. Harper watched from across the table. Is that enough? Enough to show where it probably came from. A document examiner would still need the originals and the electronic file. You always leave yourself room to be wrong. That's how I know when I'm right. A secure message from Dana arrived before lunch. The hospital had completed my urgent access request and released the portion of my chart connected to the disputed upload. The package contained the visible directive, a prior version retained by the document system, and an inventory of the files submitted with it. The earlier version looked almost the same until I reached the treatment clause. It said 72 hours. The version placed in my chart said 24. Both carried the same copied signature. Both listed Megan's name in the document properties. The first had been saved shortly before 8 that morning. The second had been modified at 8:17 and uploaded through Mom's representative account 14 minutes later. Someone had looked at 3 days and decided I deserved one. The thought made the room tilt. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table until the dizziness passed. Harper pushed a plate toward me. "Eat before you keep going." "I'm not hungry." That wasn't a question. After half a piece of toast, I drew 3 columns in a notebook. The first held what I knew. The second held how I knew it. The third held what still required verification. Megan's name in the metadata belonged in the second column as a lead, not a conclusion. Mom's account uploading the file belonged there too, supported by the hospital record. Dad's text went in the third column because it raised a question without answering it. The change from 72 hours to 24 went at the center of the page. Who requested it remained blank. By mid-afternoon, Mom had sent a message asking for one private conversation before outsiders destroy us. I replied that one call would be allowed. Harper would be present, I would take notes, and every exchange after that had to be in writing. Mom called within seconds. "Why is Harper listening to a conversation between parents and their daughter?" she demanded. "Because Harper is my medical representative. She is not related to you. That is no longer the qualification I care about." Dad joined the call, followed by Megan. No one asked how my head felt. Mom began with the police report. "You frightened me, Claire. You grabbed for the papers, and the bowl slipped. Who prepared the directive?" The change in subject stopped her for half a breath. "It was a standard form." "Who prepared it?" Megan answered. "I've never seen it." Her voice was soft, carefully tired. "In the hospital, that tone usually made everyone else lower theirs." "Mom said you were already a donor," Megan continued. "I thought she wanted you to confirm your wishes. I didn't ask her to do anything else." The author field remained on the screen in front of me, but I did not mention it. "What time did Mom first discuss the papers with you?" "I don't remember." Mom broke in. "You agreed in spirit months ago. You said you would do anything for your sister." "When?" "After Megan's accident." "Where were we?" "At the hospital. Or perhaps at home. That is not important." It was important enough to become a signature, yet not important enough for her to place in a room. Dad cleared his throat. "You always told us you were an organ donor. Did you sign as a witness?" The line went quiet. Harper did not move beside me. Her presence kept the pause from becoming something they could later deny. "Your mother put a page in front of me," Dad said. "I didn't read all of it. Did you watch me sign it?" "I believed you had already agreed." That was not an answer, but it was enough to destroy the version in which he knew nothing. "What time did you sign?" "Claire, stop," Mom said. A good sister would not need all these questions. The old reflex rose at once. The need to explain that questions were not accusations, that accuracy protected everyone, that I still loved them despite the police report and the bandage. Then my temple throbbed beneath the stitches. "This call is over," I said. "Write to me if you have something factual to add." Mom was still speaking when I disconnected. My hand shook after the screen went dark. Harper reached toward it, then stopped before touching me. "Do you want me to take the phone?" she asked. "No." Keeping it was harder. That made it necessary. The call had given me 3 accounts. Megan had never seen the document. Mom believed I had agreed without remembering where or when. Dad had witnessed a signature he admitted he had not seen. All 3 stories protected the speaker. None could exist beside the other 2. Later that afternoon, Dana called through the hospital's secure line. "I can explain the inventory attached to your chart," she said. "I cannot discuss records belonging to another patient unless that patient authorized their inclusion. In this case, the submitting party attached them to the directed donation request that was placed in your record. One item in the package was labeled Recipient Coordination Summary. Megan's initials and authorization appeared at the bottom of every page. The first paragraph described severe corneal scarring after a chemical injury. The next section made me read it twice. Standard eye bank tissue remained the recommended path once the surface of Megan's eyes was stable. 2 preparation schedules had been cancelled because required preoperative steps had not been completed. There was no sentence saying my tissue was the only match, no warning that Megan would be denied treatment without me, no medical reason for my corneas to become a condition of her future. "Does this mean what I think it means?" I asked. Dana chose her words carefully. "I can tell you what the document says. It identifies eye bank tissue as the standard option. Any further interpretation should come from the treating specialist." And Megan authorized this summary to be attached. That authorization is part of the submitted packet. After the call, the kitchen seemed smaller. For 18 months, Mom had repeated that Megan was running out of time. She had said donor waiting lists were failing her, that only someone with the same blood could give her the best chance, that my registration meant nothing if I would not name my sister directly. Megan had sat through those conversations. She had let me believe that keeping control of my body meant choosing darkness for her. The lie was not designed to obtain tissue. The hospital could never promise her mine. It was designed to obtain surrender. My phone rang before I finished adding the summary to the chronology. Megan's name appeared on the screen. "Against Harper's earlier advice," I answered. "Did you create the directive?" I asked. Mom went too far. That wasn't my question. She panicked after Dr. Lewis said there could be another delay. You know how she gets. Mom had thrown the bowl. Mom had uploaded the file. Each sentence Megan offered placed another action on Mom while leaving the document itself untouched. "The file lists you as its author." Her breathing changed. "I downloaded a template. That doesn't mean I forged anything. The packet you authorized says eye bank tissue is the standard option. You read my medical information? You attached it to a document placed in my chart. You had no right to use it against me. I'm asking why you told me I was your only chance." Megan's voice hardened. "Because you always get to stand outside everything. You make the responsible choice, everyone praises you, and I'm the one who has to live with what happens. You missed required steps twice. You don't know what those appointments were like. Then tell me why my signature was copied." Several seconds passed. "I needed to know you would choose me if it came down to it," she said. There, it was not a medical answer, but the rule our entire childhood had been built around. Megan had not wanted proof that I could save her. She had wanted proof that, given a choice, I would place my life beneath hers. "You could have asked me," I said. "You would have said no. So you decided my answer did not count." She ended the call. Rather than call back, I sent one message. "You said you needed proof that I would choose you. Is that why the directive was created?" The message showed as read. No answer came. 4 minutes later, Mom wrote, "Stop interrogating your sister. She is the injured one." The timing supplied the answer Megan would not put in writing. She had gone straight from our call to Mom. Detective Marisol Vega arrived the next morning, wearing a plain brown coat and carrying a folder thin enough to remind me how little had been formally proven. Harper stayed in the living room, while Vega sat with me at the kitchen table. "Your mother says you pulled the papers toward yourself and knocked the bowl from her hand," Vega said. "Your father says he saw the same thing. At the hospital, he told staff I lunged for the papers and the bowl slipped. Those are different descriptions." Vega made a note. "Megan says she could not see the motion clearly." The nurse recorded my statement before any of them spoke with me again. Security separated us. I also have photographs taken after discharge and a voicemail from Mom that contains no claim that the bowl slipped. Each item went across the table separately. The hospital note, the photographs, the saved voicemail, Dad's message about witnessing what Mom put before him, and my chronology. Vega studied the notebook. "You've combined the assault and the directive into one timeline. They happened in the same sequence, but they are separate acts. The bowl does not prove they forged a form. The form does not prove she threw the bowl. Please investigate both without using one as a substitute for evidence of the other." Her pen stopped. That's unusually precise for someone reporting her own parents. They're counting on everyone assuming this is too emotional to examine precisely. Vega took the chronology, but left me the original notebook. She said the records justified further verification, not a conclusion. Oddly, her restraint reassured me. If the evidence survived someone who was not trying to comfort me, it might survive the people determined to discredit me. After she left, fatigue pressed through every part of my body. The new surgical date had not yet been approved. My house smelled faintly of the locksmith's metal filings, and Mom's calls remained muted rather than blocked. Some part of me was still waiting for one message that asked whether I was afraid. None came. The following morning, an email from my employer appeared before I finished making coffee. The subject line read, "Notice of Ethics Review." Megan had filed a formal complaint accusing me of using my position to access her protected medical records. She had failed to take control of my body. Now she was coming for the career that had taught me how to stop her. The coffee went untouched while I read the ethics notice twice. Megan's complaint alleged that I had used my position at Crescent Mutual to enter her medical file, retrieve details about her canceled preoperative appointments, and weaponize those details after she asked me for help. She described our dispute as retaliation by an older sister, with access to confidential systems. Nothing in the message mentioned the forged directive. Nothing mentioned that she had authorized the same coordination summary to be attached to a document placed in my chart. The notice instructed me not to access any company system related to the complaint and to contact Paula Reed in corporate ethics before beginning work. My laptop sat closed on the table. Under ordinary circumstances, opening it would have been muscle memory. That morning, even touching the lid could be rewritten as interference. Instead, I called Paula from my personal phone. "Thank you for contacting me before logging in," she said. "Can you come to the office at 10? "Yes. I want an independent access review covering my employee identification, assigned devices, remote sessions, and any searches for Megan Bennett." There was a short pause. "We'll discuss scope when you arrive. Please preserve the complaint in its original format, including every attachment and submission time." "That is standard procedure." "Good." Harper offered to drive, but the pain medication was no longer making me drowsy, and I needed to prove to myself that the stitches had not turned me into a passenger in my own life. She followed in her car, in case the headache worsened. Paula met me in a glass conference room on the 4th floor. My manager was not present. A gray security case waited on the table. "This review is confidential," Paula said. "You are being placed on paid administrative leave while we verify the allegation. That is not a finding against you." The distinction was fair. It still felt like watching someone remove my name from a door. For 11 years, the company had trusted me to find patterns other people missed. Paula now disabled my access while I sat across from her. My work phone stopped receiving messages. The laptop was placed inside the security case and sealed. "I consent to an audit of my company activity," I said. "My personal medical records are not company property, and I am not consenting to a review of anything outside this allegation." Paula wrote that down. "Understood." She slid a printed copy of Megan's complaint across the table. "You may read it here. You may not remove or photograph it." Halfway down the second page, one sentence changed the shape of the complaint. Megan claimed I had known about her 2 canceled preparation schedules since the previous week. She also identified the exact wording I had quoted during our call, the wording from the recipient coordination summary, attached to the false directive. The hospital had not released that packet to me until the previous afternoon. "When was this submitted?" I asked. "Last night at 9:12. Please note that I first received the coordination summary through my own patient access request yesterday afternoon. I can provide the hospital's release time. That will be relevant." The attachment to her complaint, did she provide the summary itself? Paula did not answer immediately. A copy was included. Megan had accused me of stealing a document by handing my employer the same document she had placed in my chart. The complaint was meant to establish my misconduct. Instead, it fixed another point on the timeline. "Preserve that file without renaming or converting it," I said. "The source matters." Paula closed the folder. "Your job right now is to cooperate, not conduct the review." "I know." Walking out without my work phone hurt more than I expected. The elevator doors reflected the bandage at my temple and the empty space where my identification badge usually rested against my jacket. Harper waited in the lobby. "How bad?" she asked. "Paid leave. Full audit. That sounds survivable. So does brain surgery, when someone else says it." She accepted the correction without trying to brighten it. 2 business days later, Paula called with the preliminary findings. No search, page view, download, or indirect access to Megan's medical record appeared under my credentials. None of my assigned devices had opened her file. Relief came, but it did not restore my access. "The review remains open until we authenticate the documents and interview the complainant," Paula said. "Do not report to work yet." "Has the original complaint been preserved?" "Yes." "Including the coordination summary?" "Including every attachment." The call ended with no apology and no promise. That was appropriate. Paula's responsibility was not to believe me because I sounded composed. It was to verify what the system showed. My credentials had never entered Megan's record. Her first attempt to take my career had produced an independent audit proving exactly that. The doorbell rang the following afternoon. Dad stood on the porch holding a white envelope. The new lock separated us by less than an inch of wood, but it changed the entire conversation. "Claire, open the door. You were told to communicate in writing. Your mother wants to fix this. Leave whatever you brought." His palm flattened against the door. "We know the emergency room bill will be significant. Your surgery was delayed because everyone panicked. Let us cover the costs so we can stop making this worse." Everyone panicked. The phrase spread responsibility so thin that no one had to own an action. "What does Mom want in return?" Dad lowered his voice. "Withdraw the assault report. End the complaint with the hospital. Tell the relatives this was a private medical disagreement that got out of hand." And the directive? It was never used. The answer landed with the same logic as his statement about the bull. Harm only counted if their plan succeeded. "Leave the envelope and go. Your mother is willing to pay every dollar. Then she can pay what a court or agreement requires. She cannot buy the description of what happened." His hand dropped. The envelope slid through the mail slot and landed on the floor. Dad remained outside for another minute. No apology came through the door. Eventually, his footsteps crossed the porch and faded down the walk. Inside the envelope was a typed offer to cover the deductible from my head injury and any added cost caused by the postponed operation. The final paragraph required me to describe the incident as a mutual panic response under extraordinary medical stress. My hospital account sat open on the laptop. The deductible would take a painful bite from my emergency savings. A legal consultation scheduled for the next day would take another. For several minutes, the offer stayed beside the bill. Accepting it would have been easy to explain, practical even. They had caused the expense. Why should I pay it? Because the money was not reimbursement. It was a purchase price for the truth. The paper went into a clear evidence sleeve instead of the trash. An email from Mom arrived before I finished scanning it. "Robert only signed because I told him you had already agreed. He was trying to help both of you. If you continue, you will punish your father for trusting me." That sentence did not clear Dad. It confirmed that he had signed a witness statement without seeing me sign. My reply took 3 lines. "I will not withdraw my report. I will not characterize the incident as mutual. Further offers must be made in writing." A copy of the envelope, Mom's email, and my response went to Detective Vega. The originals remained with me. Paying the deductible from savings hurt. Letting Mom purchase the words in my mouth would have cost more. Near the end of the first week, Dana scheduled a secure conference with Vega and me. Harper sat nearby but outside the camera's view, sorting the duplicate packets I had asked her to hold. Dana displayed the hospital's completed access report. The false directive had entered my chart through Linda Bennett's representative account. The same account removed it after I reported the forgery. Both retained versions came from the same submission source. Megan's name remained in the author field of each file. The earlier copy contained 72 hours. The final copy contained 24. No record yet showed who had ordered the change. Vega looked down at the chronology I had updated. "This establishes that your sister's name appears in the file, your mother's account uploaded and deleted it, and your father admits signing a page. It does not establish why they did those things." "Then don't guess why." Her eyes returned to the screen. What are you asking me to focus on? Who created the document? Who changed it? Who uploaded it? Who falsely witnessed my signature? Motive can be tested later. Those actions already exist. Dana confirmed the report would remain preserved under the hospital review. Vega asked for a certified copy through the proper channel, rather than taking mine as the final record. That mattered. My copies showed what I had received. The hospital's certified copy could show what its system retained. When the conference ended, the chart in my notebook contained no dramatic theory, just 3 verified actions beside 3 names. Megan created. Mom uploaded and deleted. Dad witnessed something he had not seen. For the first time, their separate excuses had begun to form one continuous act. Dr. Park cleared me for surgery on the 10th day after the assault. The incision from the bowl had closed, the neurological examination showed no change, and a repeat scan gave her no new reason to delay. The operation was scheduled for the following morning. Work remained unresolved. The police review remained open. Several records still depended on other people doing what they had promised. Waiting until everything was settled would have meant letting Megan's complaint and Mom's pressure decide when I received medical care. So I stopped waiting. That evening, 3 complete evidence sets were prepared. Harper received an encrypted copy and a printed index. The attorney I had consulted received the documents relevant to preserving my rights, not permission to make decisions for me. Vega received an updated evidence list, identifying where each original came from. No single phone, laptop, or person held the only copy. Preparing those sets forced me to picture the possibility I had avoided since Dr. Park first found the aneurysm: Harper leaving the hospital without me. The thought made the labels on the folders swim, but I kept writing until every instruction could be understood without my voice. The cover page did not ask anyone to punish Mom, Dad, or Megan. It identified the disputed directive, the original source of each record, and the people authorized to receive information. If I could not continue the complaint myself, the evidence would still remain evidence. Harper would not have to persuade anyone through grief. "You know I would fight for you," she said. "That's why I'm making sure you won't have to fight alone." An old emergency contact card remained in my wallet from the appendectomy. Mom's name and number were written in my handwriting, faded along the fold. For years, that card had represented safety because I had never asked what she might do with the authority it offered. The card went through the shredder. A new one bearing Harper's information took its place. Nothing about that choice felt triumphant. It felt like admitting that the mother I still wanted beside my bed was the same woman I needed kept out of the room. The medical instructions were simpler. Harper remained my representative. Mom, Dad, and Megan were barred from updates, visits, and access to my room. If anyone challenged those restrictions, the written directive controlled. Harper read every page at the kitchen table. "Do you want to send your mother anything before tomorrow?" she asked. My phone rested beside the folders. A blank message opened under Mom's name. The words came before I could stop them. "I still wish you were here." They stayed on the screen long enough for my vision to blur. Wanting her did not make her safe. Missing the mother I needed did not require inviting the mother I had. The sentence was deleted, without being sent. Another email arrived in its place. Mom wrote, "I am prepared to tell the police who really wrote that document, but I will not let you accuse me of attacking you when you know I was terrified. Protect me from that lie, and I will tell them everything about Megan." Harper read it only after I handed her the phone. "She's offering your sister," she said. "She's offering part of the truth in exchange for changing the rest." The email went to Vega with no bargain and no response to Mom. For my entire life, Megan had been the person Mom protected at any cost. Now that the cost might belong to Mom, protection had become negotiable. Before sunrise, Harper drove me to the hospital. The city moved past the window in dark storefronts and empty intersections. Neither of us filled the ride with optimism. Dr. Park met us after the preoperative nurse checked my identification and confirmed the access restrictions. "The directive under review is blocked," Dr. Park said. "Your current instructions name Harper. Your relatives will receive no information unless you authorize it. If something goes wrong during surgery, what happens first? The surgical and critical care teams treat the complication. A temporary delay in waking would not trigger withdrawal of care. Harper would be consulted only if you could not speak for yourself, and your written wishes would guide that process. No one stops treatment because 24 hours pass. No. The answer loosened something inside my chest. Harper signed that she had received the current instructions. Then she pushed the clipboard back toward me. "This does not make me the decision-maker while you can decide," she said. "You are still in charge." The nurse asked whether I wanted any additional visitors notified. No. No final call went to Mom. No message went to Dad. Megan's number remained untouched. The operating room was brighter than I expected. Monitors glowed above stainless steel trays, while the anesthesia team checked my name, the procedure, and the person authorized to speak if I could not. Each answer was mine. Dr. Park appeared beside the table. "Ready?" Fear pressed against my ribs, heavy and undeniable. "Yes." Medication entered the line. The ceiling lights softened at the edges. If I woke up, Mom would have to choose a story. If I did not, Harper would have to protect the truth. The first thing that returned was sound. A monitor marked time somewhere to my left. Rubber soles crossed the floor. Someone said my name, waited, and said it again. "Claire, open your eyes." Harper. Light pressed through my eyelids. When I forced them apart, the room tilted around her face. A pale bandage covered part of my head. My mouth tasted like metal, and every thought seemed to arrive through deep water. "Done?" The words scraped out wrong. Harper leaned closer without touching the lines taped to my hand. "The surgery is over. Dr. Park said it went the way she planned." Relief came slowly because I could not hold on to the sentence. A nurse asked my name and where I was. My name stayed within reach. The hospital did not. After she supplied the answer, it vanished again. Dr. Park appeared later, or perhaps only minutes had passed. She asked me to squeeze her fingers, follow a light, and lift each foot. My right hand obeyed half a beat after my left. "Your speech is slow, and your short-term recall is still clearing," she said. "Both can happen after anesthesia and this procedure. We're watching you closely." "Harper stays." "Harper stays," Dr. Park confirmed. That answer remained when the others slipped away. By afternoon, the room had stopped tilting. Harper gave me water on a sponge and repeated only what I asked. She did not fill the gaps with decisions made in my name. "Your mother called during surgery," she said after I asked whether anyone had tried to reach me. "She told the front desk she was still your medical proxy because I wasn't family." The monitor quickened before I could control my breathing. "What did you say?" "Nothing to her. I gave patient safety the directive you signed and asked them to follow it. They did." Harper had not won an argument on my behalf. She had protected the choice I had already made. Dr. Park returned for another examination. This time, I remembered all 3 words she asked me to repeat. Before she left, my voice caught her at the door. "No information to my family, not my mother, father, or sister." She turned back. "Do you want that restriction to remain after discharge?" "Yes. Direct contact only in writing or through counsel." The sentence cost more breath than it should have, but every word belonged to me. Mom had tested the boundary at the first moment I could not defend it. The boundary had held anyway. 4 days later, Detective Vega came to Harper's apartment because I still tired after a shower and could not look at a bright screen for long. He sat at the far end of the table while Harper lowered the blinds. A folder remained closed beside his hand. "Your mother contacted us voluntarily," he said. "She provided her phone and consented to an extraction. She also gave us screenshots of a conversation with Megan that she says proves your sister planned the directive. She sent me that offer before surgery. The screenshots support part of it. Megan sent a draft. She asked how they were supposed to get your signature. In another message, she wrote that you would never do it willingly." Harper placed my notebook beside me but did not open it. The choice was mine. Vega slid printed pages across the table. The first exchange occurred in the morning. The next began nearly 6 hours later. On another page, Megan's message opened with, Then why did you change it if you thought she would agree? No earlier message mentioned a change. The headache behind my right eye sharpened. Closing the pages would have been sensible. Instead, I covered the later text with one hand and read only the timestamps. These aren't the full thread. We know messages were deleted, Vega said. The extraction marked gaps. Mom selected screenshots before she surrendered the phone. She wanted you to read her version first. My finger rested under Megan's unfinished reference. Please compare the screenshots with the device extraction and any synced records covered by her consent. This sentence answers something we haven't seen. Vega looked at the line again. What do you think was changed? I don't want to guess. We already have 2 versions of the directive. If the missing exchange concerns the time limit, the files can test the messages. If it concerns something else, the metadata can test that. The old version of me would have rushed to prove Mom worse than Megan, or Megan worse than Mom. That afternoon, motive could wait. Sequence could not. Before Vega left, he promised only to preserve what the consent and normal process allowed him to obtain. It was less satisfying than certainty, and more useful than a dramatic promise. Mom had turned over the phone to make Megan carry the blame. By cutting the conversation too neatly, she had pointed at the exact place where her own instruction might be hiding. Megan emailed the next morning. Her subject line read, "You deserve the whole story." The message beneath it offered only a better deal. She claimed Mom had pushed the plan from the beginning, described the document as a sample template, and attached a version stating that treatment decisions could be reconsidered after 72 hours. If I told Vega she had never meant anyone to submit it, Megan wrote, she would admit the bowl had not slipped from Mom's hand. The wording made my stomach tighten. She was offering to confirm what my stitches and the dented kitchen wall had already shown in exchange for turning forgery into clerical work. Harper read the email from the chair beside mine. What do you want to do? Preserve it before she recalls it. The original message, headers, and attachment went to the evidence folder and then to Vega unchanged. A reply took longer. Anger kept trying to write paragraphs. In the end, Megan received one sentence. Tell the truth without conditions. The attachment mattered even if her bargain did not. Its creation data matched the workstation already connected to Megan. It also predated the 24-hour file uploaded through Mom's hospital account. Megan had made the document. Someone had later demanded a more dangerous version. Dad entered the record that evening with an email titled, "Please don't destroy all 3 of us." He said Mom had shown him the witness page after telling him I had signed electronically. According to him, adding his name had seemed like a formality. He had been trying to keep the peace before my surgery. The witness attestation lay in my folder. Its language did not say he had been told about a signature. It said he had watched me sign. For years, Dad had used peace to describe whatever left Mom unchallenged and me quiet. Now the same word was supposed to turn a false statement into a favor. My chronology opened on the laptop. Beneath Megan's creation record and Mom's upload history, another line appeared. Robert false witness attestation. Knowledge disputed. Action verified. That distinction mattered. I could not prove what he knew when he picked up the pen. The document proved what he certified. 3 people had now supplied 3 defenses. Megan made a harmless sample. Mom trusted her desperate daughter. Dad signed a routine page. Yet each harmless act depended on the next person completing it. Laid in order, their excuses stopped separating them. They became instructions passed down a line. For several minutes, the cursor blinked below Dad's name, while an old memory competed with the record. At 16, Megan had dented his car and watched him tell Mom that a shopping cart must have rolled into it. Later, he had asked me not to mention what I saw because Megan was already having a difficult year. Keeping the peace had always required a witness to surrender her own eyes. That memory did not prove what happened now, so it stayed out of the chronology. Separating what hurt from what could be established was harder than collecting files. It also kept the truth from becoming another story shaped to punish whoever frightened me most. Dad's email received no answer. His original message went to Vega, and a copy went to my attorney. Whatever explanation he wanted considered could be given, where it would be preserved and tested. My inbox would not become a private room where each of them rehearsed innocence on me. Recovery turned the following weeks into measured distances, the first walk around Harper's block, the first hour I could read without nausea, the first night I slept without checking whether my phone had changed my medical chart while I was unconscious. The hearing was scheduled only after Dr. Park cleared me for a longer outing. It was not a criminal trial. My attorney explained the scope twice. The judge would decide whether temporary protection should continue and whether my relatives should be barred from contacting me or attempting to access my care while the other investigations moved forward. Procedure belonged to the attorney. The chronology belonged to me. An offer arrived 2 days before the hearing. Mom would agree not to visit the hospital if I withdrew the accusation that she had intentionally thrown the bowl and stopped seeking restrictions against Megan and Dad. The arrangement would remain private. Privacy had protected them for 35 years. I declined. The morning of the hearing, Harper drove and carried the duplicate evidence binder because my doctor had limited how much weight I could lift. At the courthouse entrance, she offered her arm when the stairs made the scar beneath my hair pulse. "Tell me if you need to stop," she said. "I will." That promise was another kind of boundary. Strength no longer required hiding every limit. Mom sat across the aisle in navy blue, the color she wore whenever she wanted seriousness to look like virtue. Megan kept dark glasses on until her attorney murmured to her. Dad studied his hands. Their accounts arrived through questions from counsel. Mom said Megan had exploited her fear of losing one daughter while another faced surgery. Megan said Mom controlled the hospital access and told her what the document needed to accomplish. Dad said he had tried to prevent a fight from tearing everyone apart. Each statement contained enough truth to sound reasonable alone. By the time my name was called, pressure had begun building behind my scar. My attorney asked whether I needed a recess. Across the aisle, Mom watched me with the attentive expression she used whenever weakness could be renamed instability. 5 minutes, I said. In the hallway, Harper handed me water and faced the wall while I closed my eyes. She did not tell me to be brave or remind me what was at stake. When the pressure eased, the decision to return remained mine. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready enough." When it was my turn, the room seemed brighter than the operating room. Harper sat behind me. Vega waited to authenticate the records if asked. Neither could speak the sequence in my place. My attorney asked why I believed the contact and access restrictions were necessary. "Because the disputed directive was not one bad choice by one frightened person," I said. "It required 4 actions, and the records identify who performed them." The first page appeared on the monitor. "Who created the file?" my attorney asked. The document metadata and version history identify Megan's computer and user profile. Her 72-hour attachment confirms she created the earlier form. "Who uploaded it to your medical record and later tried to remove it?" The hospital audit identifies my mother's emergency access credentials for both actions. The next page carried Dad's signature. "Who certified that he saw you sign?" "My father." No such signing occurred. His email now says he relied on what Mom told him, but the attestation says he witnessed it himself. Dad lifted his head. Mom did not look at him. What changed between the versions? The waiting period was reduced from 72 hours to 24. Vega authenticated the extraction and explained that Mom had voluntarily consented to the phone review. Her screenshots omitted portions that remained recoverable through the device and its synchronized data. He did not call the messages a confession. He identified where they came from and how the gaps had been restored. The complete exchange appeared. Megan had asked, "What if Claire wakes up before we can use it?" Mom's response followed, "I'll still be her proxy. 24 hours is enough." No one gasped. Real rooms rarely obey drama that neatly. Paper shifted near the judge. Megan turned toward Mom, while Mom stared at the monitor as if punctuation might rescue her. Her attorney asked whether "enough" could have referred to enough time for doctors to evaluate me. "That is not what the directive said," I answered. It authorized treatment to be stopped after that period. The message matches the change in the file, the change matches the version Megan sent, the uploaded file matches my mother's account, and my father's statement made the false signature appear witnessed. My attorney asked whether any one of those records proved the entire plan by itself. No. That is why I put them in order. For once, no one asked whether I loved my sister, whether Megan deserved sight, or why I could not make one more sacrifice. The questions belonged to them now. Megan had to explain the file she created. Dad had to explain the event he claimed to witness. Mom had to explain why the safest interval became the shortest one just before she used old access to place it in my chart. Their power had always depended on making my character the subject. 4 verified actions changed the subject. The judge continued the temporary order. Mom, Dad, and Megan were barred from direct contact, from seeking information about my care, and from entering my treatment facilities, except for their own legitimate medical needs, under conditions the order specified. Any necessary communication had to go through writing or counsel while the matter proceeded. It was not a conviction. No one left in handcuffs. The order did something I needed more immediately. It made my no enforceable outside my own strength. Harper and I had nearly reached the elevator when Mom called my name. She stopped several feet away, her attorney beside her. For one foolish second, my body remembered running toward that voice. "Claire, please," she said. "Could you say it less harshly next time? Megan could lose her whole future over the way this sounds." No apology came before the request. Not for the bowl, not for the file. Not for calling the hospital while my skull was open and trying to reclaim authority over me. Even after sacrificing Megan to the police, Mom still expected me to soften the truth so her favorite daughter would land gently. "You were not trying to save one daughter," I said. "You were deciding which daughter was disposable." Her mouth opened, but the elevator arrived before she found a version of my sentence she could correct. Harper stepped inside with me. The doors closed on Mom's navy suit, Dad's lowered face, and Megan standing apart from both of them. My phone vibrated before we reached the ground floor. An email from Paula waited on the screen. The subject line read, "Ethics Audit Complete Final Determination." For several seconds, my thumb hovered above the unopened message. The elevator reached the ground floor before I opened Paula's email. Harper stood beside me while people moved around us toward the courthouse doors. My thumb left a damp print on the screen. The final determination occupied less than a page. Crescent Mutual had found no evidence that my employee identification, assigned laptop, work phone, remote connection, or office terminal had ever entered Megan's medical record. No search bearing her name had been performed through my credentials. The allegation of unauthorized access was unsubstantiated. My access could be restored once Dr. Park cleared me to return. For several seconds, the words refused to feel like relief. They looked too small to contain the mornings I had awakened without a badge, the sealed laptop, or the fear that 11 years of careful work could be erased by one accusation. "They cleared you," Harper said. "The records cleared me." That distinction mattered. Paula had not chosen my story because she liked me better. She had tested the accusation and followed what remained. We sat on a bench outside the courthouse while I read the rest. The copy of the recipient coordination summary attached to Megan's complaint had been submitted before the hospital released that document to me. Its file characteristics matched the copy preserved with the false directive. Crescent Mutual would retain it under the company's investigation rules, but it would not use Megan's medical information beyond the narrow review she had initiated. Her attempt to prove I had stolen the summary had established that she possessed it first. The following morning, Paula called. "Your paid leave will end when your physician approves a return," she said. "Your access will be reactivated for your regular duties. The report will state that the complaint was not substantiated. Will the original submission remain preserved?" "Yes. That does not give you permission to use it for work or investigate your sister through company systems." "I understand." Paula paused. "You contacted ethics before logging in, surrendered the devices, and kept your request within the allegation. That protected the integrity of the review." It was not a promotion or an apology for a process she had been right to follow. It was recognition that restraint had done what anger could not. 2 weeks later, Dr. Park approved 4-hour workdays with screen breaks. My identification badge opened the office door again. Nothing ceremonial waited inside. Emails had accumulated. Someone else had watered the plant on my desk too often, and my first assignment was a routine billing review. Ordinary work had never looked so much like something I had chosen. The first morning, a familiar pattern of duplicate treatment dates appeared in a claim file. For several minutes, my attention kept sliding toward Megan's complaint, as if every medical record now carried a hidden accusation. Then the dates resolved into what they were: an ordinary coding discrepancy with an ordinary explanation waiting to be verified. My notes went through the same review channel they had before my leave. No one applauded when the discrepancy was confirmed. Paula stopped by before lunch and reminded me to take the screen break Dr. Park had required. Following restrictions is part of returning, she said. The old reflex wanted to prove I could work a full day without help. Closing the monitor after 2 hours felt harder than finding the error. Still, I closed it. Reclaiming my career did not require injuring myself for the privilege of keeping it. 4 months after the protective order hearing, Vega and my attorney met me in a small conference room to explain where the legal matters stood. By then, the hair around the surgical scar had begun growing back, and most days passed without the pressure behind my eye. Recovery had not made the evidence move faster. Device examinations, hospital certifications, interviews, and negotiations had taken the time they required. The written resolutions separated the actions instead of hiding them inside one household crisis. Megan accepted responsibility for creating and using the false directive. The agreement placed her under supervision, required her to reimburse specified costs tied to the forged filing, and continued the no-contact restrictions. Nothing in it called her medical condition an excuse. Nothing barred her from receiving care. Mom accepted separate responsibility for throwing the bowl and for using her old representative access to place the document in my chart and remove it after discovery. Her terms included continued no contact, repayment of the emergency treatment costs caused by the assault, and completion of a court-approved behavioral program. Dad corrected his statement and acknowledged that he had signed an attestation describing an event he had not witnessed. His cooperation and smaller role affected how he was handled, but they did not transform the signature into an accident. No one had received the spec. Nancy the ruined mom once warned the relatives I wanted. They had received consequences attached to their own names. Some of the outcomes felt smaller than the terror of reading that directive in my hospital bed. A behavioral program could not return the night before surgery. Supervision could not make Dad move away from the door. Repayment covered documented costs, not the price of learning that my parents could treat my survival as negotiable. My attorney had warned me that legal accountability measured provable acts, not every wound those acts created. Accepting that limit was not the same as declaring the harm small. It meant refusing to build my recovery around the fantasy that a severe enough punishment would finally make them understand me. The agreements also prevented them from combining their conduct into one blurred excuse. Megan could not hide behind Mom's access. Mom could not hide behind Megan's fear. Dad could not call himself a bystander after signing his name. My attorney turned a page toward me. Linda's counsel is asking whether you'll support reduced restrictions once she completes the program. Megan's counsel is asking for a statement that you do not believe she intended you to die. I have never claimed the bowl was part of a plan to kill me. Then you can say that if you want. The wording sounded harmless. It would also place my voice inside their request for mercy and invite both sides to stretch it further. The evidence already shows what happened, I said. I won't write a letter asking anyone to increase the consequences, and I won't write one asking to reduce them. The no-contact order stays. Vega closed his folder. He had brought the records to the room. The decision about what I would do with my voice remained mine. Refusing to rescue them did not feel like revenge. It felt like putting down a weight I had been trained to call love. At a final scheduling conference several weeks later, Megan sat across the room wearing wraparound glasses. A filed request from her attorney had already explained that she needed brief breaks and enlarged print while recovering from a corneal transplant using eye bank tissue. She had chosen to disclose that limited information to obtain the accommodation. No doctor had told me anything. When a clerk handed her a form, Megan brought it close, then read each line with the help of a magnifying sheet. Her vision was plainly not restored by magic. She moved carefully and blinked often. Still, she read her own name and signed beneath it. The sight reached somewhere anger had not sealed. As children, Megan used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms and ask me to keep my eyes open until she slept. Years later, she had turned those eyes into a test of whether I loved her enough. Watching her read should have made hatred simple. Instead, grief arrived beside relief. She had been frightened of losing her sight. That fear was real. So was the document she created. The eye bank had been a viable path, once she completed the required steps. My death had never been her only chance to see. Megan looked up once and found me across the room. Neither of us spoke. The no-contact order did not need a dramatic violation to prove we still mattered to each other. Caring that she could read did not require me to carry her consequences. Her attorney later asked through mine whether I would agree to omit the transplant from any public statement. The request was unnecessary because I had never planned to discuss it. Megan's treatment did not belong to me merely because she had tried to claim my body. My answer authorized counsel to confirm only that I had never opposed her receiving appropriate care. It did not release records, soften the forgery, or revive the lie that my corneas had been required. Justice did not need her blindness. It needed the end of her claim on my body. Mom's final letter arrived through counsel in a plain envelope. The first sentence said she had only tried to save one child. The second said no mother should be punished forever for panicking. By the final paragraph, the broken household had become something I caused by involving the hospital, my employer, and the police, instead of allowing everyone to resolve the matter privately. The letter never said she was sorry for throwing the bowl. It never named the copied signature, the shortened waiting period, the upload, or the deletion. For half an hour, the pages lay on my kitchen table beside an empty sheet of paper. Replies formed without effort. I could have corrected every sentence. I could have explained again that saving Megan never required controlling when my treatment stopped. Mom already possessed the same records I did. What she lacked was not information. The letter went into the case file with the other originals. It did not remain on my table, and it did not follow me into the bedroom. No response was sent. Silence had once meant swallowing whatever version of events kept Mom pleased. This time, it meant refusing to return to a conversation where my pain existed only as an obstacle to her innocence. That night, grief arrived without the argument I had expected. Mom's letter remained in the locked file cabinet, yet my hand still reached for the phone when I remembered the way she used to call after medical appointments and demand every detail. Missing that habit did not make it loving. It only proved that harmful patterns could leave empty spaces when they ended. The phone stayed face down until morning. Dad waited another month before emailing. His message contained no attachments and no offer of money. He asked to meet alone because he had lost both daughters and wanted one chance to explain what living between Mom and Megan had been like. Harper sat across from me when I read it. "Are you going to answer?" she asked. "Yes, once." The reply took an entire afternoon. "You did not lose us in one day. You stood in front of the door while I was bleeding, and you signed as a witness to something you did not see. If, after 1 year, you can take responsibility for those choices without blaming Mom, Megan, or the need to keep the peace, you may send one letter. That is not a promise that I will meet you." Dad responded within minutes with, "A year is a long time at my age." The sentence tried to turn his clock into my emergency. No second reply followed. Mom and Megan remained blocked indefinitely. Necessary notices went through counsel. My medical account received a new password, a verbal security phrase, and written instructions that no previous representative could regain access through an old emergency designation. "Are you sure about your father?" Harper asked later. "No." She waited. "I'm not sure it won't hurt, I'm sure I'm not going back to the old system. Heli. No. No, etter. No, etter, do, no, too. A boundary did not require it. The boundary only required me to decide what could cross today. At my next appointment, Dr. Park displayed the newest scan and traced the treated area with the tip of her pen. Everything is healing in the direction we want, she said. You can return to full days gradually. Keep the light protection if it helps, and call if the headaches change. Harper had driven me, but she remained in the waiting room while I met with the patient representative afterward. A new medical directive lay on the desk. It named Harper, limited her authority to periods when I could not decide, and repeated the restrictions on Mom, Dad, and Megan. The representative reviewed the last page. Your organ and tissue donor registration is still active. Some patients choose to reconsider after an experience involving coercion. Do you want information about changing it? For a moment, the hospital room returned. Mom's papers against my blanket, Megan waiting from her bed, and Dad between me and the door. They had taken something I believed in and tried to turn it into a debt. That did not mean the belief belonged to them. No, I said. Keep my donor registration active. No directed gift to Megan, and no authority for my relatives. If donation is medically appropriate after my death, I want it handled through the standard system. The representative marked my choice and turned the form toward me. My signature went onto the page in fresh blue ink while she watched. No copied image, no false witness, no one else deciding how long my life deserved to be defended. Giving freely and being taken from were not the same act. Harper rose when I returned to the waiting room. Sunglasses hid most of my face because the afternoon glare still produced a faint ache. How did it go? She asked. I kept the donor registration. Her expression did not tell me whether the choice was brave, foolish, or forgiving. She simply nodded. Then it's yours. Outside, she walked beside me without reaching for my elbow. The glass exit door resisted when the wind caught it. My shoulder pressed into the bar, and the door opened under my own weight. At the car, I paused before getting in. Dr. Park had said the narrow silicone strip over my temple was no longer necessary. One edge lifted beneath my fingernail, then the rest peeled away with a small sting. The window reflected a woman in dark glasses, with new hair growing around a fine scar. Months earlier, blood had run from that same place, close enough to blur my vision. Mom's papers had weighted beneath it as if injury made consent easier. The scar no longer looked like a mark of ownership. Harper unlocked the car, but did not hurry me. For the first time in my life, keeping my eyes wasn't selfish. It was simply refusing to let my family decide when I was finished using them.